Previously on Gears.
It was a huge game. It was nearly a full house at Ellis Park, and it was the Lions versus the Super Kings. So the thing is, they played one match down at the Port Elizabeth Stadium last weekend, and the Kings lost that one. The Lions had a 7-point advantage. So going into this game, it basically was going to work out whoever scored the most points was going to be cumulative points was going to be declared the winner, and if it was a draw, then it would have gone down to tries, etc., etc., etc. Eventually, it came down to the Kings clawing themselves back with two fantastic tries and winning the game, winning the game by 4 points, but losing overall by 3 points. And it's just quite sad because you lose the match, but then you win, which is quite weird. And then you've got another team that wins but actually loses. But it's something that it had me quite puzzled afterwards, because you sit there and go, you're playing with rugby players' livelihoods. The administrators are still going to keep their jobs, still carry on doing what they're doing, but the rugby players themselves are now in a very, very difficult position, specifically those of the Southern Kings, not the Super Kings, the Southern Kings. Which is, it's heartbreaking. It's really, really difficult. I mean, I didn't get much joy out of the Lions going through, and I didn't get much sadness or joy that the Southern Kings didn't make it through either. But I suppose you've got to, go back to when it all started, and it was very, very political. There are a couple of things that worried me after the game. We had guys like Alan Solomons, who was the head coach. He's now taken up a position, I think, in Scotland or Ireland. So he's going to leave the franchise regardless of whether they made it or not. He came out afterwards saying, well, if you want transformation, then you really got to have a team down in the Eastern Province, and et cetera, et cetera. The thing is that when all of this happened, that the Lions were not allowed to play Super 15 and the Southern Kings were, everyone was, taken aback, and there was a lot of mudslinging going on. However, it was decided then that whoever finished bottom of the South African Conference would play against the Lions, the MTN Lions, in a playoff situation. We have this in most formats of sport. You see it in football, you see it in rugby as well. See if people get up to Currie Cup or if they stay in the B division, those kind of things. So to come out afterwards and now start saying, well, you know what, it's unfair, it's this, that, and whatever, is, I don't know, a bit of the kettle calling the pot black, or the other way around. But it is just desperately unfair for a lot of the players. And also, and taking nothing away, I mean, the Lions have toiled during this past season, and now they will hopefully generate some revenues and be able to go and play Super 15 rugby. But I mean, if you looked at the quality of the rugby over the weekend, I mean, are they going to do better than what the Southern Kings did? And the Southern Kings did a brilliant job in their first season. You've got to admit that. Where do we go from now? Because will all of a sudden EP rugby just fall away? And then hopefully they try and keep certain players there to play in Currie Cup games, friendly games, all of that kind of stuff. Just what the Lions have done, until there's a playoff at the end of the season, and they could play the Lions again. They could play the Cheetahs, the Bulls, the Stormers, or the Sharks. And one of those teams, unfortunately, will suffer the same consequences what the Southern Kings have suffered now. There's got to be a better solution somewhere along the line that we can maintain and have some decency in terms of rugby, so that we do have strong teams coming out of the Eastern Cape and Eastern Province, as we've just seen with the Southern Kings, and I think they did a pretty good job. But now to leave all of these players out in the cold, and most of them, I assume, are now running around looking for contracts so that they can go and play Super Rugby or Currie Cup rugby, at least, for the stronger provinces. I think it's a very, very unfortunate mess that has been dictated to by by politically orientated people as opposed to people who have the sport at their best interest. Having 6 teams in South Africa is also not really what we really need. We battled to get 5 strong Super 15 teams along it, and I just think it's most probably element of greed and a little bit, too much rugby that is going on at present. So I find it very, very difficult to be overly happy for the Lions. And I also find it very, very difficult to be overly happy or very, very sad for the Southern Kings, because this was something that was negotiated, and now that it's come to fruition and we do have a winner and we do have a loser, it seems as though everyone's losing, which is very, very unfortunate. And I think South African rugby, Sanzar rugby, need to get this together and maybe start thinking about stadiums, how they're going to get people back into the stadiums, and playing a lot less rugby. I mean, we're finishing Super 15, now we're going to the 4 Nations. We've finished that, then we've got the Currie Cup competition, and these guys never turn out to be the superstars that you want them, because season by season you just find new players all of the time, because other players are most of the time injured because of the amount of rugby that they're playing. I think it's in a very, very sad situation. And professionalism, as much as it is completely needed in sports, sometimes is now becoming a greed as opposed to the enjoyment of the game itself.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Gears.